Order. Questions to the Prime Minister. Mr. David Davis.
Speaker. Yesterday it was announced that the French company Dassault had won the first round in the contest for the $10 billion fighter aircraft contract with India. That's disastrous news for thousands of workers up and down the country, particularly in my constituency. Given the long relationship between India and Britain, given the fact that we give many, many times more aid to India than France ever did, would he engage himself and the full force of the government in attempting to reverse this decision?
Well, of course, I will do everything I can, as I have already, to encourage the Indians to look at Typhoon, because I think it is such a good aircraft. The decision is obviously disappointing, but it is about who the Indians have assessed as making the lowest bid and therefore asked to enter into further negotiations. They have not yet awarded the contract. I'd say to my right honourable friend, who I know cares deeply, as I do, about the people employed in his constituency, we don't expect any job losses stemming from this decision, and it doesn't rule out Typhoon for India. We must go on making the case. This is a superb aircraft with far better capabilities than Rafale, and we will try and encourage the Indians to take that view.
And Jarvis.
Mr. Speaker, this week temperatures across Britain have dropped drastically, and last winter 200 people died every day from preventable cold weather related illnesses. But in Barnsley, instead of being able to focus resource on promoting the dangers of cold weather, we've had to set aside £17 million for an undemocratic, top-down reorganisation of the NHS. Can the Prime Minister tell my constituents if this really is a responsible use of public money?
Well, first of all, what I'd say to him and to everyone in Barnsley is this government has been able to keep the higher level of cold weather payments that were introduced before the election, and we've kept them for all years, and I think that will be a real help along with the winter fuel allowance. What I'd say to him about the NHS is to simply look at the figures. If you look since the election, there are 4,000 more doctors working in our NHS. There are 620 more midwives working in our NHS, and we're actually treating 100,000 more patients per month in our NHS. That's what's actually happening in the NHS if he actually looks at what's happening in his hospital rather than just repeats what the trade unions are telling him.
Mr. Greg Mullholland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On New Year's Eve 2010, my constituent Jamie Still was killed by a drink driver who was more than twice over the limit, and yet his family had to face the fact that the person who killed him continued to drive for a further 8 months until sentencing. Will the Prime Minister agree to meet with the family and consider their campaign that people who are seriously over the limit in a death by dangerous driving case should have as part of their bail conditions their driving licence withdrawn?
My heart goes out to my honourable friend's constituents for the loss that they have suffered. I think he raises a very important point about what happens in cases like these and what you can and cannot do with bail conditions. I'll certainly go away and look at that. It may well be this is something we can consider alongside the recommendations we're considering about drug-related driving. I do think there's more work for the government to do in this area, and I'll certainly listen to his and his constituents' concerns.